It's Twitter Tuesday on the Locked On Giants podcast. We're answering your questions coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I am Patricia Traina, and welcome to another edition here. We have a Twitter Tuesday. Our weekly mailbag is on deck for today, and this episode is brought to you in part by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. And thank you, as always, for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And please, if you're not already doing so on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and that like button and help us get to 5,000 so that we can do the giveaway that I have planned for you guys. So let's jump into today's show. Just a few quick things, though, before we do get into your questions. I do want to mention the roster transactions that the Giants have made. They made them on Monday. They signed running back Matt Breida. They signed defensive end Jihad Ward. And, of course, they announced the signing of offensive lineman Jamil Douglas, who signed last week, actually, or agreed to terms last week. So the Giants made all those moves official. And I'm going to do, probably later on this week, I'm going to do an overall show on the free agent moves done. And I know we have some questions in today's mailbag about that, what I think about it and whatnot. So we will cover those questions, and I'll tell you, like I said, later on this week, I'll probably have a show in which we talk about the moves that have been made and then how this, what's still to be done. So didn't forget about you. That is coming up. And also coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast, I am supposed to have an interview with a Giants legend. It might already have taken place by the time you see this podcast, but the plan is to speak with former New York Giants running back Otis Anderson, who is involved in a new marketing initiative. Otis is going to tell us about that, and we're also going to talk about the Giants, the state of the franchise. We're going to talk a little bit about Saquon Barkley, all kinds of different things. We'll get Otis's take on all that stuff. So that is coming up, and I believe that's going to be Wednesday's show. So it's definitely going to be this week, but I think it's going to be on Wednesday. So hope you will check that out. All right, folks, let's get into the Twitter questions, the mailbag questions. And again, we have mailbag, we have text, we have email questions. So however you communicated to me, I've got all the questions on the screen. I am ready to go. So let's kick this off. And we will start with the email questions. And let me see. I'm going to start with a non-football question from Renato P. Renato sent in, I think, 2 or 3 questions. So in the order in which they've been saved, this non-journalistic one kind of pops up. So just real quick, from the teams you support in NBA, NHL, MLB, etc., are you able to set aside the journalists from the fan, or are they mixed together? And then he also asks, I bought your book, The Big 50. If I go to New York sometime in the future, can I have your autograph? All right, Renato, thank you first for the questions. And thank you for buying the book. Yes, if you really want me to deface the value of the book, I'm happy to sign it. Also, what I'm happy to do is I think I have some autograph plates left over from a book signing I did. So if it's easier, I can just sign it that way and send that to you. And then you can just kind of peel the sticker off and put it in the book. So, and that goes for anybody who should want a signature for the book. That's up to you. But if you want that, just send me your address where you want me to send it to you. Also, if you want a certain inscription done, I'm happy to do that. Just, send me an email at lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com. Tell me what you want me to say, and I'll sign it for you, and I'll send you that nameplate or that book plate if I can, if I still have some left, which I'm pretty sure I do. Now, regarding your first question, Renato, truth be told, yes, I can separate being a fan from being a reporter. I do watch sports leisurely, not very often, but I do. I mean, I don't cover the NHL, but I do like hockey. I do enjoy getting to a hockey game if I can. Baseball, I like baseball, but not as much as I did years ago when I was younger. The work stoppages over the years kind of kill that for me. Football, I watch football. Do I watch it with a reporter's eye, an analyst's eye? Yes, but I can kick back and enjoy it. In other words, I'm not looking at my screen at the various resources that I look at when I cover the Giant games. So yeah, I can separate the two. So thanks for that question. All right, let's get into the football stuff now. Renato wants to know, from prior free agency that you follow from the Giants, were there any players that made you say, uh-oh, not going to work, and they indeed failed, or any that made you positively surprised that they performed better than you initially thought? Failures, I would say probably none come to mind, Renato. Were there contracts that I didn't quite get? Yes. Like, for example, in recent times, the Jonathan Stewart amount of money that he got, I didn't understand that. I understood why they brought him in, but I didn't understand the money. I didn't understand the Patrick Omame money. Again, I understood why they brought him in. I guess the only one I really had some trepidation about in recent times was Nate Solder. I mean, I knew the Giants needed a left tackle after Eric Flowers didn't work out. But if I'm being honest with you, I was a little concerned about Solder's age at the time. I was concerned about some of the injuries he had while he was in New England. I just wondered if the Giants would have been better off, with a stopgap, as opposed to a guy they just gave a big contract to and got saddled with. So that one was a question mark for me. Now, one that also was a question mark for me, but it ended up working out really well, and I'd have to go back several years for this, was Antrel Roll. And the reason why I think I was at first reluctant to embrace that contract is because I didn't know how Roll was going to fit into the Tom Coughlin locker room. And in the beginning, there were some problems. You can go back and you can look it up. There were some head clashing, if you will. By the end of things, though, Roll and Coughlin smoothed everything out, and Roll became just a great leader for Tom Coughlin. So that was another move that I was like, wasn't quite sure how that was going to pan out. So those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. So thanks for that question. All right, folks, before we get into the next group of questions, it's that time of year again. As college basketball's tournament is finally here, and from all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just about basketball. BetOnline.net is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite casino games from Vegas. Head on over to the website today, BetOnline.net, and find out more about the trends and all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Giant fans, we have more for you on today's Locked on Giants podcast. It is a Twitter Tuesday, and we have one more from Renato P., who asks, do you believe Logan Ryan's departure was used more to send a message that nobody is protected from being cut, or do you believe there were other reasons he was let go? Renato, I don't think it was Logan Ryan was sent packing to send any kind of message. It's just, here's the thing. My feeling is that the coaching staff felt that Logan Ryan's skill set was not a fit for what they wanted to do. So rather than, continue to carry him on the books, they just said, you know what? Look, we've got to cut guys. We're going to have dead money in the salary cap. Let's just move guys out now, rip the Band-Aid off, get the guys in here that fit our system and what we want to do, and just call it a day. So that's what I think was behind Logan Ryan being cut by the Giants. I don't think it had anything to do with, sending a message or anything like that. So thanks for your questions, Renato, as always. All right, let's move on to a question from John G., who asks, Alabama's Williams and Michigan's Ojabo were both slated to go in the first round before their leg injuries. How far do you think each will fall now? Third round, maybe? And then he asks about the turf. Will the NFL ever require all teams to play on grass? All right, John, regarding the first question, I don't know the answer. I don't know how badly those guys were hurt. What was it, full tears? Was it partial tears? I don't know what their rehab schedule is. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say, okay, those guys will be back in 6 months, and so therefore, they can slide further down. I mean, if we're looking for a reference, Jalen Smith a few years ago from Notre Dame, I believe he tore his knee up. And he fell, I want to say I think he fell to the second round, and the Cowboys grabbed him in the second round, and then they redshirted him. So, the bottom line is if there's talent there, and if there is optimism that the guys will make a full recovery, it depends on the team. But I would say, these are guys, like you said, they were projected to be first-round picks. So I can't see them falling too far down, to be honest with you. But I've also seen situations where guys have gotten hurt and they've gone undrafted. So it's really, really hard to say, John. I'll be honest with you. I just don't know the answer to that. I'm just, spitballing here. But anyway, regarding your second question, regarding the NFL requiring all teams to play on grass, no, I don't think that will ever be required. Stadiums, as you know, around the country are used for various events. And you take, for example, MetLife Stadium, right? They tried using grass systems several years ago, and they found that with 2 NFL teams playing on the turf, college football, concerts, and other events, that it just became more cost effective to go to artificial turf. So I don't think the NFL will ever require it. Do I think that, players in the next CBA session, negotiating session, will require it? I think they'll ask. But at the end of the day, here's the thing. When players hit free agency, they have a right to go wherever they want. So if turf is an issue, they could easily sign with a team that doesn't have an artificial surface. I'll also say this, John. Injuries also happen on grass, all right? Saquon Barkley was injured on grass. I want to say Odell Beckham Jr., when he had the ankle injury in Cleveland, when he was with the Giants, I think that happened on grass. Football's a violent game, and I know that that artificial turf is sometimes less forgiving than grass, but at the same time, stuff does happen on grass. So I don't think that you can ever force a team or force a venue to say, okay, you know what, if you want to have NFL games, you have to install grass. I just don't see that happening, if I'm being honest with you. So, but thanks for the question, John. I appreciate it. All right, let's now go to our Twitter questions. We will kick this off with one from Ponce, who wants to know, should the Giants get Baker to compete with Daniel Jones for the starting quarterback? All right, Baker Mayfield. No. A couple reasons here. Number one, I don't think the Giants have the cap space to fit Baker Mayfield's option year in. Number two, the Giants have said they are going to give Daniel Jones every opportunity to show that he could be the franchise quarterback. Why would you bring in Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield is probably going to want to go to a team where he can be the starter. I do not see him wanting to come to the Giants as a backup, or potentially as a backup, I should say. So no, I don't see the Giants making that move. Not to mention, do you really want the Giants giving up draft capital to get Baker Mayfield? No, I know it's not going to cost. I don't think it's going to cost, I should say, multiple first round picks. But that said, this is a Giants team that is not a quarterback away right now. Do you really want them giving up any of their draft picks if it's not for a player, a young player that they can bring in that fits a need that they have? I don't. And I have a feeling they don't want to do that either. So no, I'm Baker Mayfield. But thanks for the question. That was a good one. And first one I've actually seen that particular scenario posed to me. So appreciate that. Okay. All right, Giant fans, we have about 3 more questions, small mailbag this week. So we'll get to the 3 remaining Twitter questions in just a bit. But first, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, there's only one place to find what you need quickly for your car or truck, and that is rockauto.com. Rock Auto is a family-owned business with over 20 years offering competitive pricing on thousands of parts for every make, model, and manufacturer. Check out their website today, rockauto.com, and don't forget to write down Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. rockauto.com, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car or truck will ever need. That's rockauto.com. All right, Giant fans, we have 3 more questions on today's Twitter Tuesday. Small mailbag this week, but look, some weeks we have large ones, some weeks we have small ones. This is a small one. It's still all good as far as I'm concerned, and I hope you are enjoying the podcast. So, all right, let's get to these last 3 Twitter questions. One fishy scientist asks, if both Neal and Ekwonu are on the board at 5, whom do you prefer? And then question number 2, does it bother you that they keep signing former Bills? All right, so 2 questions there. Let me answer the first one. I'll tell you what. Earlier, I would have said Ekwonu because he is, a slam dunk pick. But now, I got to be honest with you, I'm wondering if the Giants are going to go and take the approach where, with a high draft pick, they don't want to necessarily have to move a guy to a different position or on the offensive line if he plays a different side. So, for example, Evan Neal has played left tackle and right tackle in college. Ekwonu, if I'm not mistaken, has only played left tackle. So does it make more sense for the Giants to pick a guy who has played right tackle, if that's where you want him to play? Or are they maybe thinking, you know what, we're going to move Andrew Thomas from left tackle to right tackle, and if we get Ekwonu, plug him in there? It's a tricky question to answer because I don't know how they're thinking. I'm still learning how this management team is going about building the roster. So I don't have, trends or prior instances I can fall back on to say, oh, this is what they're going to probably do. From a grade perspective, I think Ekwonu is the higher rated prospect, but I would not be unhappy if they took Evan Neal and they plugged him in at right tackle. So really, here's the other thing. Daniel Jones, I mentioned they want to get Daniel Jones up and running. They want to give him every possible opportunity to succeed. So I know this is short term, but wouldn't it make sense to draft a right tackle and plug him right in at right tackle, a plug and play guy versus a guy who maybe you've got to change his landmarks, his footwork, everything he's done. So that's my thinking. All right. again, I don't know what Shane and Brian Dable are thinking regarding that. I will have a better idea once they talk to the media, and they will talk to the media before the draft at some point next month. So we'll find out more what they're thinking at that point. Okay, now you also asked me about, does it bother you that they keep signing former Bills? All right. Right now, believe it or not, I'm going to say no. And I've made this comparison before. It's interesting you asked me this because I also have an article on Giants Country coming out about this very same topic. But I liken this to, okay, it's kind of like a restaurant, all right, a corporate chain of restaurants. They open up a new location and they send corporate trainers down to get everybody up and running and to do things the way that they want them to. And then the corporate trainers move on, and then you gradually replace them with local talent or your own talent. I think that's what Shane and Dable are trying to do now. It's also what initially we thought Gettleman and Joe Judge were trying to do, but there was a big difference. And the difference is Judge and Gettleman signed guys to multiple year contracts, even when, there wasn't a lot of money to be had. You look back last year, Danny Shelton, Reggie Ragland, they traded for Keon Cross, and they had two fullbacks. They added guys. Logan Ryan was signed, Graham Gano from Carolina, that connection. They added guys with the intention of having them blend into the fabric, okay, as opposed to starting from scratch, maybe using these guys as, if you will, like a pattern to say, okay, this is what we want, but we want a different outfit. We don't want a replica of what was done prior. We want our own unique, tailored outfit. So to that end, right now, no, it doesn't bother me that they're signing all these Bill players. I mean, think about it for a second here. John Feliciano at center, he knows Brian Dable's offensive system, and I firmly believe that system is going to have a heavy Buffalo flavor to it. Davis Webb, quarterback, knows that system as well. They're going to be Webb and Feliciano are probably going to be two guys that you're going to want to sit next to in the meeting room if you're Giant players. Okay, Tyrod Taylor, who wasn't with Brian Dable, but he was with Shane and Brandon Beane in 2017, their first year, when they went from being a crappy team to a playoff contender for the first time in, like, I think it was 17 or 19 years, but it was the first time in the current century. Taylor has experience with how to win, so there's the value there. You look at these other guys that they brought on, Matt Breida, who knows, who knows the system from Brian Dable. So there's value there. Now, where Gettleman and Judge made the mistake, in my opinion, is they kept going back to the well. And to me, I always thought that was lazy. In other words, don't keep going back and bringing in every former Patriot you can get your hands on, or every former Alabama player you can get your hands on, or every former Georgia player you can get your hands on. The NFL is big. There's a lot of colleges out there. There's the CFL. There's Europe. There's all kinds of different places where you can find talent. And to me, I think with the Giants, under Gettleman and Judge, where they fell short, is I got the impression they limited their search to a small pool. Now, I don't get that impression with the current regime. Brandon Brown, on an interview with Giants.com, said, look, there's talent out there. It's up to us to go out and find it. So I think if they treat these guys that they brought in as corporate trainers, and then ultimately they move on and they're replaced by younger guys that are groomed in the Giants way, which, by the way, still needs to be defined. This is an all-new regime, so the Giants way does need to be redefined. I can live with it, is what I'm getting at. So if they continue to do it this way, where they bring in all kinds of, former Bills or former, Ravens or whatever, then I might have an issue with it. But right now, no, I don't have a problem with it. If the intention, like I said, is to establish what the new Giant way of doing thing is and setting the pattern, if you will. So thank you for that question. All right, Andrew Bogdan is next. Would you agree that there are person issues with Kayvon? That would be Kayvon Thibodeau, the Oregon pass rusher. Therefore, I think it's going to be hard to get a consensus on him and will most likely draft someone with less character questions. Andrew, I haven't sat and interviewed Kayvon Thibodeau. I've only seen, what he did at the combine. Me personally, I don't have a problem with the guy. I would have more of a problem with the guy if he had an arrest record or if he had a discipline record. Is he outspoken? Yeah. Does that bother me? No. I mean, I'm, unless I'm missing something here, I don't know what the issue is, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to think. I can't recall if there was a specific thing with him. But yeah, it doesn't bother me, and I don't agree that there's quote unquote character issues with Kayvon Thibodeau based on what I'm recalling here. So, it's just a matter of, look, with any personality, okay, if you bring a big personality into your locker room, you have to know how to manage that personality. You can't let that personality take over. And I think, based on the limited interaction I've had with Joe Shane and Brian Dable, I think they'll get these guys, in sync with one another. I don't think you're going to have a personality that comes into the locker room and that personality is just going to totally dominate things. I'd be stunned if that happens. So, but thanks for that question. And by the way, I would not mind if the Giants drafted Thibodeau if, the tackles are off the board. So, all right, one more question for this week, and this comes from Steve Henning. If we trade back at 7, how far back do you go? Okay, I always, as you know, say, well, let's see who's on the board. But let's see. All right. I've just pulled up Tankathon.com, and I'm looking at the full order. All right. So based on what has transpired in the NFL with the quarterback situation, keeping in mind that as I record this, there are still additional dominoes that need to fall. Namely, where is Baker Mayfield going to land? All right, so let's see. Atlanta just signed Marcus Mariota. Do they need a quarterback? Okay, they draft number 8. I can't see them swapping places with the Giants at number 7. I'm trying to see who else might need a quarterback. Houston might need a quarterback if they're they're at number 13. So could I see the Giants dropping down 6 spots? I wouldn't drop down past 10 if I'm the Giants if at number 7, but I don't know if they're going to be able to now because Atlanta's got Marcus Mariota, and obviously they're not going to swap one place. I just don't see that happening with the Giants. Seattle seems willing to give it a go with Drew Lock. The Jets, they're not going to need a quarterback. And then you have Washington at 11, and I don't think I want to go make a trade with Washington number 1, nor do I want to go underneath Washington because they can grab a player maybe I'm looking at that I would have to face 2 times a year. So, yeah, the only team I can make a case for is Seattle. If Seattle has any trepidation about, so yeah, the only team I could see making a case for right now is Seattle if indeed Seattle doesn't feel good about Drew Lock and they want a quarterback and they want to get ahead of Atlanta, who ultimately is going to need a quarterback. But, here's the wild card. The wild card to me is Carolina at 6. All right. Now, if I'm the Giants, I'm not trading pick number 5 at all. Would I trade pick number 7? Yes. But, if Carolina takes, the top ranked quarterback off the board, then I wonder if all bets are off. So this is really tricky. I don't know if the Giants are going to necessarily be able to pull it off, but hey, I hope they can, because, it means extra at bats for the Giants and Joe Shane. So we'll have to see if they can pull it off. But yeah, the dominoes are falling, and it's going to be a tricky one indeed. So, all right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in as always. And again, coming up this week, I'm going to have my interview with Otis Anderson from the 1986 Super Bowl team. We'll talk more about the free agency moves that the Giants have made and anything else that pops up here in the land of the Giants. So make sure you keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if on YouTube, your first watch of the day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.